Hello, my name is Jenny Thomas, and this is the fall semester of 2021. This is my presentation on my capstone project, and the title of this project is Application of Opportunities to Learn in Community-Based Settings. In this project, we will see what community-based learning is, how it is an advantage or a disadvantage for students in schools worldwide. Project Introduction. The purpose of this capstone project was to observe, implement, and evaluate the advantages and disadvantages of community-based learning. How does community-based learning happen outside and inside of schools worldwide? And the project will delve into research that shows how community-based learning can happen in the least restrictive environment. What is community-based learning? This is any type of knowledge that is ignited by kinesthetic fuse when we are learning. The issue at hand. Problem. More and more schools are stripping students of community-based learning, and therefore students are losing their creativity. This problem was selected by me to research because as a teacher, I am seeing this firsthand. Students are having more and more state testing and not as many outlets to use their imagination. When we think of community-based learning, we think of learning in the community. For example, internships, service learning, volunteering, field trips. These are some community-based learning that we don't see anymore. Not just because of school testing, but also because of the world we live in now. COVID-19 at its finest has stripped this, and it is making students lose their creativity inside and outside of the classroom. The need for pursuing this topic is to make students and teachers aware of how community-based learning can be implemented still throughout the curriculum, even if it's not outside of the classroom. What the literature says. Overviews and what is community-based learning? The opportunity for students to bring thoughtful knowledge and ideas based on personal observation and social interaction. Southmore College. Two words that stick out to me in this sentence are social interaction. Something that I have noticed as a teacher is that the students that did not go to pre-K and get that social interaction are not as used to being in school and don't have that social interaction down as a key as the students from before when COVID didn't happen. Encouraging more human and personal interaction, but both on and off campus, where students themselves articulate their own learning, is what community-based learning is all about. Personal interaction is key. As we can see, out-of-class activities, volunteering, service add-ons, internships, service learning, and service learning advocacy are discussed as terms that go hand in hand and that mean community-based learning. Culture and community-based learning. One of the writers that I researched about and that has many numerous journals about this topic is a writer named Sims. Writer Sims reports that there is a worldly lack of understanding culture and community-oriented learning. In one of the pieces, Sims takes the time to speak about how culture has been eliminated in learning and how this may affect kids in coming generations. Students can demonstrate awareness and subtle differences among each other and their cultural behaviors when they get that social interaction, and this slide in itself kind of goes hand in hand with that social interaction piece. Culture and community-based learning can help each other because when students are assimilated with a broad diversity outside of the classroom or even inside the classroom, this is one way that they can learn not only about themselves but about others. Social and psychological aspects of community-based learning. Community-based learning is a broad term that incorporates many kinds of educational experiences that move students into a larger community. This requires students to both learn from and contribute to the world outside of the classroom, and it gives them an idea of something that they didn't know before. For example, if we were learning about shapes in our classroom, it's one thing to put a pencil to paper and draw the shape, but it's another for students to go outside to the playground and find the shapes. That's making that personal observation and letting students think outside of the walls. CBL holds promise as means to promoting and developing critical community. But there are risks involved, and this is one part where I have seen a disadvantage in the research that I found. Although that community-based learning may be great for some, it may not be great for others. Some people or students may not be able to have that freedom to just go and observe, and they may need that structured pencil to paper, and that's okay. But a collaborative classroom can only be successful when both the students and teachers are working. And this article from this passage of community-based learning provides more opportunities for those types of learners as well. Benefits of community-based learning. Now, as we talked about some of the disadvantages of community-based learning, some advantages of community-based learning are that it can be referred to action learning. And it's a form of learning that is kinesthetics, and it makes you learn by doing. For example, when you first arrive at a job, you have hands-on experience and training before you start the job. This is an example of CBL. In schools, you witness problem solving at every corner. Problem solving itself is community-based learning. More and more students are depending on their teachers and depending on their parents and guardians because we are not letting them get out into the world and have their own time to learn. This is something that I have seen in my research, and community-based learning is one outlet that will let students use their imagination and get out of their wall in their mind and the walls of the school. Reform and learning from the outside world. You can see that the author of the articles mentioned in the section that teachers need to be aware of things happening in the community so they can educate their students in a non-biased way. Of course, as teachers, we are asked to come at a topic in a very non-biased way. And this is also what community-based learning teaches us as well. Social change and thoughts are provoked when students are engaged in community-based learning. And many of the articles that I have seen in this section mention that state testing should not be an underlying factor of learning. Of course, it may help students and show us where students are at a benchmark, but students should be able to get out and use their imagination to build reform. Hands-on learning is something that stays with the student for years, and research in this paper shows that community-based learning does this. Here are my references and resources for my paper and for the things that I have used to support in this presentation. As we go back to the issue at hand, I wanted to take a minute and reflect on what we were talking about so far. The main problem at hand was that more and more schools are stripping students of community-based learning, and therefore students are losing their creativity. Hopefully, throughout this presentation, you were able to see some advantages and disadvantages of community-based learning, but also how we can use this to better the upcoming generations. As mentioned before, some of the factors that make community-based learning diminish is COVID-19. And COVID-19 is something that may stick around or may not, and we don't know. But as teachers and educators, it is our duty to make sure that students get the best education that they can. And if community-based learning is one way to do that, then all educators should be aware of that And hopefully, throughout this presentation, I was able to enlighten and show what community based learning can be and how it can be used in the classroom throughout my paper as well. Thank you.